question that we have is, what kind of vitamin fish oil is good for a 12-year-old?
Well, what you're looking for in fish oil is the omega-3s, and which contain substances called EPA and DHA. And fortunately, they make some good capsules that have the fish oil. If you're trying to do it naturally in the diet by eating fish, you want to go with fish that are low in mercury, like salmon is good and cod. You could go with cod liver oil, but that doesn't taste well. So unless your child's cooperative with that, sometimes that can be an issue. I like the company Nordic Natural. I don't get all of my supplement products from GNC, but I think GNC has a number of good products. So I buy my omega-3 capsules there, and you'd be looking for a dose of about 1,000 milligrams for a 12-year-old.
Okay, great. I'm a particular fan of Nordic Naturals as well. They're a great company. Now, I skipped one. I just realized I skipped a question as I was going through. Dr. Copeland, what do you think about the recent Autism Speaks research on the dangers of Miralax? My son is 4 and has been on Miralax for almost a year. It has helped, but I have always been worried about its safety.
Well, good question. I wouldn't unduly panic, but there are some safety concerns. They're not dramatic safety concerns because Miralax has been on the market since 2008 for children. So there's been 7 years of experience, and there's been no disastrous reports. But the Food and Drug Administration did respond to some concerns because there have been some rare complaints. And basically, even the prominent pediatric GI specialists have said there's not been enough research on long-term use in kids. So Miralax has this chemical called polyethylene glycol, or PEG for short. And while it doesn't really, as far as we know, get absorbed much in the intestines of adults, there's been no specific studies on children. And unfortunately, there was a batch of Miralax from 2008 that was found to have very tiny amounts of some toxic byproducts. So this is not necessarily all batches, and they were tiny amounts, but the concern became, even if there's a tiny amount of a toxin, if you take it daily for months and months and months and months, could it affect children? So the FDA has approached medical researchers and saying, we need to do some studies on this. And a famous peds GI doctor, a gastroenterologist, Dr. Tim Bowie, said, yes, it's time we do the studies. And there's been a growing move within standard Western medicine to say, let's look how we can handle constipation in the GI tract in more natural ways by healthy diets, good exercise, and use of probiotics. So maybe we don't have to depend on Miralax as much. If the Miralax is helping him, I wouldn't abruptly stop it. It could be bad to have chronic constipation, but sometimes you could alternate the Miralax with a Senna product like Senecot, or a mineral oil product like Condremol, which is Kondremul. But even like long-term Senecot, those studies haven't been done, so there could be issues with that. I hope that helps. Do you have any other comments or questions on that?
Well, we had another question that involves Miralax. I'm gonna skip that for now and kind of go to another topic for just a second. But I think that's good, cautious advice with all things considered. But I want to go to, because I thought this was a particularly good question. Somebody said, "Hi, what type of questions should I ask a developmental pediatrician? I go see one for the first time in 2 years since his diagnosis, and I don't even know what to expect." And they said, "Thank you." So what should we be asking the developmental pediatrician?
Oh, great. Well, it depends on what their training and background is. But it's good that the family's thinking ahead, and whatever questions you have, I would start writing them down now and go in with the list. Hopefully you'll get a developmental pediatrician who has a fair amount of autism experience. And I would think that most would by now in their training. But once in a while, you might run into a developmental pediatrician who maybe is really more emphasized on ADHD or cerebral palsy. So you want to make sure they have a fair amount of autism experience too. And I particularly like it if the developmental pediatrician has a fairly good background in applied behavior analysis. And I would say most developmental pediatricians know now that there's ample scientific literature over decades showing that ABA is evidence-based for autism. But I've occasionally run into a developmental pediatrician, this was more a few years ago, I would think it's less often now, who kind of had a bias against ABA. So I'd want to kind of weed that out. But presuming that they're going to be open-minded, I would then think about, well, what skills does my child currently have? What would I like them to learn? What's the next things I'd like them to learn in different areas like self-help and communication? Are there any problem behaviors that I want to decrease in my child? Do I need any help advocating with the school districts and or for services like additional physical therapy, occupational therapy, ABA therapy, speech therapy, and then ask the developmental pediatrician how they could help you in that advocacy. If you live in a state where there's now laws saying that health insurance companies have to pay for ABA, and if your child's not already receiving ABA or if funding is an issue, then the developmental pediatrician could write a prescription for ABA for your child. So that could be very helpful. And so I kind of write this all down. What do I want my child to learn? What problem behaviors do I want to decrease? What help I want with therapies? And go in with your list and realize if you have a long list, they may not be able to get to all of them in the first appointment, but share your list and then together you can prioritize what you're going to address that visit and then arrange follow-up visits.
Wonderful. That's fabulous, fabulous advice. And of course, we should mention that you are, again, a developmental pediatrician, so who better to know exactly what to ask. And you are seeing patients in California and in particular in the Sacramento area, correct?
Right. My practice is in West Sacramento and I'm licensed in the state of California. And I am going to try to get a group of patients who want to see me in Southern California and travel down there sometime, but that hasn't happened yet.
Well, and because I had said to you during the break, I make no bones about it. I would like for my son to be seen by you. So I think that would be wonderful. So I want to continue on. I love this question. Somebody wrote in and said, "Hi, Shannon, this is a question for Dr. Copeland. Which organic fruits are okay to give kids on the spectrum? My son is 5 and I want to give him more fruits. I just don't know which ones and how much a week should he have because of things I have heard about phenol reactions," and they said, "Thank you very much."
Okay, well, first of all, to reassure you that not all children on the autism spectrum have phenol reactions. Phenol sensitivity is only in a certain subgroup, and fruits can be naturally high in phenols, but definitely in terms of buying fruits, I would be aware of the dirty dozen of foods, and especially if you're on a limited grocery budget, the dirty dozen you want to buy is organic because the dirty dozen foods absorb more pesticides. So for fruits, that means a variety of things that would be like apples, blueberries, cherries, grapes, strawberries, peaches and nectarines. You definitely should buy organic on those. And then in terms of whether your child might have a phenol reaction, one of the hallmark characteristics is they'll get angry red ears and really red flushed cheeks very easily, not just once in a while, but almost multiple times a day. And at the time that they get really red in the ears and face, they can get extremely hyperactive and have a headache, and that could definitely be a phenol reaction, and then you might want to more closely watch the phenols in the diet. If your son's really not having that, I don't think you should be unduly worried about phenol reactions or try to restrict his fruit too much, because we need 4 or 5 servings of fruit a day plus 5 servings of vegetables a day to have a good balanced diet. So, but a number of fruits are fairly high in phenols. Phenols are types of chemicals, and one type of chemical that's a phenol is salicylates. So berries, raspberries, grapes, apples, apricots, cherries, dates, raisins, currants, plums, prunes, oranges, pineapple, watermelon, and cantaloupe. All these foods are high in salicylates. So you wouldn't want to be doing a ton of just one of them. Some fruits you can definitely give that are not high in salicylates would include pears that you peel. Golden delicious apples aren't high in salicylates or phenols, and then mango and papaya. So you do have some choices. If you think you just want to mildly lower phenols, and it's impossible to eliminate all phenols. You don't really want to do that. But I would just not give the same fruit day after day after day, many times in a row, and quite a bit of it. So if you're alternating the fruits and you mostly give some pear and golden delicious apple, mango, and papaya, and then occasionally a little bit of strawberries, organic, a little bit of cherries, so they can get the benefits of peaches and whatnot, I think you'll be okay.
Wonderful. Well, we're thrilled that mango is on the list.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I love mango too.
But I love talking about the organic fruit, because this is the best time of year that the organic fruit is plentiful, which means it's the least expensive that it is, and at any time of the year. I know my son and I went on Saturday. We went peach picking. We picked organic peaches. Which then we freeze. I used to think that you had to like get a canner and do all that, but apparently you just wash them, make sure that they're really dry. We've done this before. It's not just apparently. And you stick them in a really good freezer Ziploc bag, and then you just take them out and use them one by one during the year. And if you run them under warm water, the peels fall off of them.
You've given me an idea. I have an organic peach tree in my backyard, and I was wondering what to do.
I freeze those puppies. We had organic frozen peaches all year long, and they're plentiful right now. They're fabulous, and they're inexpensive right now. And there's other fruits that are organic, and papaya is crazy mango, excuse me, is crazy inexpensive right now, and it's really good. Yeah. Okay, I want to go on to some questions about skin, and we had several different questions about skin. I want to start with one about a clogged pore on the scalp. They say, Dr. Copeland, what is the cause of clogged pores on the scalp? Is it yeast, too much sugar, or allergies?
Well, maybe none of those things. That's actually a hard question to answer. And I'd have to say I don't know. And I would recommend that you take your child into their doctor and have the doctor look at whatever you are seeing. And if you're just talking about one specific area where the skin look of the scalp looks unusual to you and you think it's clogged, or if that's what a doctor's told you is the problem, it occurred to me, if it's one specific area you're talking about, there could be what's called a sebaceous cyst. So sebaceous glands or oil glands, and we have oil glands in our scalp, of course, that provide oil to our hair. And if they get blocked, you can get a little cyst formation that's filled with oil. And if that's what your child's doctor thinks it is, they could refer to a dermatologist who could then either drain or excise the cyst. Other than that, there's a lot of other different scalp conditions, so I'm not sure what it would be.
Okay, so the best thing, though, is to go and have the doctor look at it and have a conversation with the doctor who's got eyes on it.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, somebody else wrote in and they said, Dear Dr. Copeland, thank you for being on the show and answering questions. Can an itchy rash that doesn't go away be caused by a nutrition deficiency, and what factors should we look at? Okay,
that's a complex question too. And there's a lot of different things that it could be, and it depends, again, is it over a good part of the body? Is it in discrete patches? But a common condition in all children, not only children with autism spectrum, is what's called eczema, and it's an inflammatory skin condition. eczema is often described as the itch that rashes. So a lot of times it starts with the child feeling itchy skin first, and they scratch and scratch so much to the point that they start to get red scratch marks, and then the skin gets red and irritated and flaky and crusty, and can get infected and so forth. So eczema is fairly common, and it's not necessarily from a nutritional deficiency. It can be just a skin sensitivity. Again, the pediatrician can help diagnose if it is eczema. About 1/3 of eczema can be related to food sensitivity. So not a nutritional deficiency, but food sensitivity. And the most, so that's only 1/3 of eczema. So 2/3 of eczema really doesn't relate that much to the diet, but about 1/3 of eczema can be aggravated by the diet. And the number one food that will tend to aggravate eczema are eggs. So if the doctor helps you determine that your child is food sensitive, eliminating eggs can help the eczema. And then a key point of treating eczema is to really keep the skin moisturized and try to decrease the itching. Moisturization goes a long way, and sometimes the doctors will recommend things like Nivea or Eucerin, Cetaphil, Vaseline, something that's gentle and hypoallergenic to keep the skin moist. I like, it's expensive, it's about $21 for a bottle, a small bottle, but it lasts a fair amount because you don't need much. It's called Ancient Minerals Magnesium Lotion. And the skin absorbs some magnesium, so it's a way of getting your daily magnesium. And it's got some organic coconut oil and shea butter plus the magnesium, and I think that's good for moisturizing the skin.
And where do you get that?
Sure that it's not an infectious condition like scabies, that sort of thing, because that scabies is a microscopic mite, a tiny little insect. It's pretty common in children. It can pass through a daycare or whatnot, and that has to be treated with an anti-scabies lotion.
Now, where do you get the Ancient Minerals? It's called Ancient Minerals.
Ancient Minerals, and they have different products, and the one I get is a magnesium body lotion. I just order it online.
Okay, I've never heard of it before, but it sounds great.
Yeah, I enjoy it.
Okay, wonderful. Now, since we're talking about this, because as you were talking about it, of course, my son had horrible eczema, and it's something that we hear a lot in the autism community. I always remember Temple Grandin talking about that everywhere she goes, and she flies all over the world, and people will come up to her in airports that have kids with autism. She just started doing informal research. And as they would talk to her and ask her questions, she would say, let me ask you something. Does anybody in your family have eczema or skin issues? And she was just sort of keeping track in her head how many of these autism families said that they had eczema, and it was overwhelming. That it was almost 100%, according to her she says, very informal research. And my son certainly suffered from terrible eczema as a baby and then continued on. And I never put it together before, Dr. Copeland, that eventually when it went away, but when he was about 5, we discovered that he had a mild allergy to eggs, and we removed eggs from his diet, and that's when the eczema went away.
Yeah. So he was in the 1/3 of cases that he had a food sensitivity eczema. Now, I'm sure eczema is very common in children with autism spectrum disorder. The difficulty is it's just very common overall. So there's a ton of children who don't have autism spectrum who also have eczema.
Absolutely.
So I don't think there's been any good large-scale study to see if eczema is more common in children with autism than the general population, but it's pretty common.
Might be interesting. But since we're talking about skin, my son is 12, but he's very much in the teenage, the voice has dropped, there's an Adam's apple all of a sudden. Yeah. And I am seeing that it's not like his eczema of old, but on the back of his arms, he is having some sort of it's a weird looking breakout. But it's only on the backs of his arms. Now, is that just hormones and being a boy, or?
It could be in dry skin. You could try moisturizing. I should mention it's rare in this country to get really, really severe zinc deficiency, but there have been some studies to show that children with autism spectrum disorder, at least in these study groups, were mildly zinc deficient compared to the normal population, and that can aggravate eczema. So sometimes supplementing with zinc, but I'd start low, like 5 milligrams. And zinc can be, if you give it on an empty stomach, it can cause nausea. So I get nauseated with zinc. But I would think it's rare to really severe zinc deficiency is quite rare in this country.
Okay. Dr. Copeland, our next question says, to the doctor, my child chews gum to help with sensory input. Will excessive chewing cause digestive problems? And thank you.
Potentially, yes. So that's a good question. I know it's tricky because a lot of kids can have this sensory seeking behavior and they can chew their shirt collars until they disintegrate their shirts and so forth. So gum might be used as a sensory replacement, but if they're chewing a lot of gum, you want to go sugar-free because you don't want cavities. But the artificial sweeteners called xylitol and sorbitol in gum are FODMAPs. And FODMAPs are particular ingredients that can cause GI upset with a lot of gas, bloating, alternating constipation, and diarrhea. So if your son's chewing sticks of gum many, many times throughout the day, day after day, I would say yes, that could be a GI issue. And I would try to gradually fade back and cut back. He might need a little bit of gum for his sensory issues, but at other times you might see if you can redirect him to other sensory activities that don't necessarily involve oral sensory input.
That's interesting because a lot of us have heard over the last couple of years about how beneficial xylitol is for your teeth, that it helps your teeth, but I had not heard before, but it makes perfect sense that it can be digestively, that it can upset things, and for our kids it's not a good trade-off. No. Okay, now we had somebody write in and say, for the doctor, as a home science experiment, we wanted to time how long it takes for a capsule to melt in water. It's been 3 days and the capsule still has not melted completely. Our whole family takes supplements. Will taking many capsules cause digestive issues? Anyway, we can help the body break, is there any way that we can help the body break down the capsule? And thanks.
Well, first you could look for kind of natural vegetarian capsules. And if you're going through good companies like Claire or Kirkman or Nordic Naturals, even their capsules, they try to make from really good, high quality ingredients. But also I wanted to reassure you a little bit, because while you did the experiment in water, what's in the stomach is very acid. There's a lot of hydrochloric acid in the stomach. It's not water. And so I want to reassure you, likely those capsules are going to break down.
Yeah, and so reasonably, when we're taking a capsule, how long do you think it takes for it to dissolve and be in the stomach?
It probably varies depending on the ingredients going into the capsule, but definitely a lot of digestion starts in the stomach because of the high acid content plus the churning of the stomach. And I would think within 12 hours for many capsules, they're going to be pretty dissolved. Okay. And if you think about it, unless you're having capsules coming out in your stool, if you haven't seen capsules in your stool, you're okay.